Okay, my friends. So it's a beautiful mime of the Rebbe. We're holding page 12, and the Rebbe goes into the words, the building of the Mishkan. That the Mishkan was made with krushim, was made with beams, and the word for the beam in Hebrew is a kedesh. And the everything in Hebrew, everything in Torah is exact, and even in the words of the Torah that we call it a kedesh, is because a kedesh has 3 letters in it, kuf, rei, shin, and these 3 letters, kuf, rei, shin, are the last 3 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Kuf, rei, shin, sin, taf, saf. We don't have the taf and the saf, taf, whatever, but we have the kuf, rei, shin. Because the Gemara says, the Talmud says that the letters, the God created the world with Asarim Amaris Nivra Elam. God created the world with the words of the Lashon Kodesh, with the Hebrew alphabet. Created the world with the Hebrew alphabet, and the letter Shin came to God and said that the world should be created with the letter Shin, because the letter Shin has within it the founders of the purpose of the world, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God said, no, we cannot create the world with the letter Shin, because in the letter Shin, we have the letter Shin, you put it together with the Kuf and the Reish, you have the word Sheker. You have the word falsity, Sheker. Sheker is false. The Gemara says, Sheker ein ragrayim. Sheker, false, something false, has no legs. Right? The Kuf and the Reish surely have no legs. The Shin has some kind of a base, doesn't have a leg, and Sheker has no legs. So therefore, Sheker, something that is false, cannot stand. It will fall down. How do you keep a Sheker a little bit alive? How do you keep a Sheker? Sheker is, so in Chassidus, in Kabbalah, Sheker is the concept of klippus. Sheker is a falsity, means something is a cover. You're trying to portray something you're really not. And that's called klippus. A clip is a cover. It's trying to portray something that it doesn't, that's not really. It's faking it. Fake news. So we have a sheker, we have a klippa. This klippa is the falsity of the world. So how do you keep the false going? Is by putting a little emes. You have to put a little bit of shin in there. Shin is not totally evil. And you put the shin in there, and that gives the sheker its emes. So in general means how does klippus, how does evil have its existence? Is because we give it existence. If we would not give evil existence, evil would not be here. But because we give it existence, it's like, how is it dark? Because there's no light. If you bring a little light in, you would chase away the darkness. Why is there darkness? Because there's no light. The lights are not on. So there's no light. There's no light, so there's darkness. There's no emes, there's no bringing emes into it. Then you have the capability, because of our lifestyle, that we live a life of a sheker, we give sheker existence. We give falsity, lies existence. And that's why there's a concept of klippus and darkness and ultimately evil in the world. Because we give it in existence. That's why the Torah says, when it comes to evil, you have to get rid of evil. If you have compassion on evil, if suddenly you have rachmanis on evil, suddenly it's all maluvish, it's all enclosed, and we're good, oh, how can we? That gives evil existence. That's it. If you would be if you would eradicate evil, you wouldn't have evil. So we give evil existence because we, for whatever reason, don't hate evil so much. We just don't hate evil so much. Alter Rebbe Tanya says, a tzaddik hates evil. You can see already if you're a tzaddik or not, if you don't abhor evil, if it doesn't make you sick, right? If evil would make you sick, you would be a tzaddik. Evil, you can handle evil. You don't have to hate evil. I don't see evil. All these expressions, because we don't really hate evil. We're not tzaddikim. We're not righteous, totally righteous individual. So we all have a little sheker in us. The question: how much sheker do we have? How much of a covering? How much klippus do we have? How much false do we have in our life? So the Rebbe goes. The Fidik Rebbe goes into the letters Reish and Kuf. In the word sheker, so he said what the letter Shin is, And then the Frierdiker Rebbe explains the kuf and the reish. The reish and the kuf are both ein lehem raglayim. The Gemara says they don't have any feet. But in itself, the reish and the kuf have something similar in the other side of the alphabet. So everything in klippah, everything in the negative has something in the positive. Because even this negative has the capability of transformation. So everything in klippahs has a kedusha. So the reish in the kedusha is the letter dalet. It's almost exactly the same, besides that it comes out on the right side a little bit. And the letter kuf is the letter hey. So both of these letters, the letter dalet and the letter hey, both in the name of the Eibush itself, Adnai and Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So you have the letter dalet and the letter kuf. Chassidus says the opposite of the letter dalet and hey and kuf and reish. Yeah? So we're holding in the middle of page 12. In the 6th and 7th chapter, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, focuses on the difference between the Dalet and the Reish. So the Frierdiker Rebbe goes into the difference with Dalet and the Reish. Dalet and the Reish are almost similar. That's why you have to be very careful when you say Echad. To say Echad, in the end of Shema, to say it very clearly, because you can make a mistake between the Dalet and the Reish. If Chas v'Shalom, you change the word from the Dalet at the end of Shema to the letter Reish, you don't only have a different word, you have a word that's the opposite of it. You have the word Echad means one, Acher means the other. So you have to be very careful. That's why we emphasize the Dalet, Echad, the Dalet, to make sure that we're not going to change it to a Reish, to a letter Reish. So the Rebbe says, now we're talking in Kabbalah, in Chassidut. The Rebbe says, even though, this is the people's Rebbe, even though the letters are similar, almost identical in both of their shapes and meanings, because both of them mean the concept of poorness. Dalus, the word dalus, being poor, and Rosh is also the concept of Rosh, is the aspect of being poor. Both of them are the words are have within it a word of being poor. Anius, being poor. So you have actually. It's even though they are both in their meaning almost the same, they are actually polar opposites. In essence, they're the opposite. One is kedusha, one is holiness, and one is klippah. The word dalus, related to the letter daled, and reish, both mean poor, which seem to imply that they are similar. But the type of poverty is completely different. The reish represents spiritual poverty of klippos who are poor in terms of their godly revelation. So the reish shows on the aspect of poorness in kedusha, the aspect of spiritual poverty, while dalus represents the holy poverty of bittul, when a Jew realizes that he has nothing of his own and everything comes from Hashem. This is the positive way, both the way in the way. So you have a guy who's dalus, he's poor. He's poor, he's totally bottled. He realizes he is like a poor man. A poor man who realizes his whole existence is somebody else. Plus, he can't scrape together a dollar. The dollar he has is from somebody else. That's a person that is extremely poor, that has nothing of himself. You can say that in Kedusha also, when a person feels that he's a poor, tefillah la'ani. You have the same expression. David HaMelech says, tefillah la'ani kiyatev, the prayer of a poor man. The David HaMelech says, my tefillah is like the tefillah of a poor man. Why? Because in essence, he said, I have nothing. I have nothing for myself. If I have nothing for myself, everything comes from God. I'm a poor man. I have nothing. So I'm poor.
If he has nothing, what do we have?
Nothing. Nothing. How much is nothing of the 2 zeros? Nothing of nothing.
Nothing is nothing. There's a song. Nothing for nothing is nothing.
That's Billy Preston.
There you go.
See?
See?
You gotta have something. But he's, it's the other side. You have to have something.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Rabbi,
yeah.
we are praying to Hashem all the
Yeah.
time to give us parnasa, beriut, health, everything else.
Because I have nothing without you.
So we have nothing without Him.
So I'm a
we
dallas.
We're still
I'm poor.
asking Him to provide us with all these things.
So it's like going around, you see, that's why a person comes to shul, and he has to ask for people for money, he has to collect $1, $2, $3. That's a dollars. That's a poor man. He needs the dollar. He needs the $2. That's why a person call up a seich. A person opens up his hand, you give him the $1. That's a poor man. He doesn't have even $1 without you giving him $1. Can you imagine such dollars? Such pointers?
You're giving him the dollar?
Okay, you're giving him the Abish's $1, but you're giving him something. But nicely, you shouldn't say, "Oh, but why?" Does he? Yeah, if a guy has to open his hands for $1, that shows on a person that needs the $1. He doesn't come. He's not coming for extra, for moistness, for extra needs. He's coming for push it. He doesn't have $1. He doesn't have money to feed himself. He doesn't have money to put his guys in his car. It's a whole different level of poorness. In Kedusha, there's a concept of Kedusha. And that's a poorness in holiness. That a person feels that he has nothing. He's penniless without God. He's penniless, totally empty. In fact, the Medrash says, page 13, the Medrash says that if somebody exchanges a dalet for a reish, he destroys the world. There are two key examples of this. If the dalet in the word echad of Shema is switched with the reish, spelling acher, the other God forbid, is instead of meaning Hashem is one, he says Hashem is meaning another God. Exactly the opposite of the Shema is all about. If the reish in the word acher is the word dalet, the pasuk, you shall not bow to another God, acher, and you change it, you shall not bow down to one God, you're mamish destroying the world too. The exact opposite of the intent meaning of the pasuk. So therefore you have to, this is the reason why halacha states exact care should be taken in pronouncing these letters clearly. Because you need to make sure that you have, so you want to understand, so just like in practical terms, you have to be careful. So too in these two concepts of anius, so to say, of poorness, you need to be clear what's the difference between poor man number one and poor man number two. There are two different kinds of poorness, even though both have the concept of anius, of being poor, but there's two different kinds of poorness. One is poorness with a poverty, holy poverty, and one is the concept of poverty in klippus. Two different avodas. In a way. You have to work on the concept of making klippus poor, taking away their existence. You got to start making them poor. And the way you make them poor is by feeling poor maybe in spirituality. So if you feel rich in spirituality, you're Baal Gaiva in spirituality, you have the emes, you're Baal Gaiva. That's the way you make the klippus rich. In a way, that's the way you make falsity rich. So when a person feels that Pashat is a great Talmid Chacham, he's a great sage, and he knows everything, and maybe he does, but if his learning makes him ego, gava, then that makes his klippus rich. It makes his klippus rich. It makes the other side rich, because you're giving klippus yenikas achatzonim. You're giving your chitzonius. You're giving your klippus. You're giving the evil also an existence by that, because gaiva is evil. If you were so knowledgeable, you would be humble. You would say, I know nothing. Instead of you say, I know everything, then you're giving your gaiva. So you need both. Your intellect needs to make you poor in kedusha, feeling that no, I don't have enough kedusha, I don't have enough holiness, and that gives you the capability of diminishing your klippus, to make your ego less and less, and that's the way it works. So they balance together, and that's why the letter dal and the letter reish are similar. You have a picture. You see, it gives you a picture to show you the letter Dalet and the letter Yud. So the letter Dalet and the letter Reish. So what has the letter Dalet more than the letter Reish? It has the Yud to the right, and that is Bittul. That is Bittul. Yud is Chachma, as we'll soon say. So the concept of Bittul in the poor man. So that's the poor man in Kedusha, where the poor man in Kedusha, where the Jew feels that he needs to be more spiritual. He needs to be more godly. I'm poor in godliness. I need to go out and find godliness. That's what it says actually. One of the ways, Ezu Chacham Halei Mikol Adam. A person that is poor in spirituality says, I can learn from everybody. I can learn from it. Why? Because I'm not such a Chacham that I can't learn from somebody else. A person is Balgaiva says, I cannot learn from somebody else. There's nothing to learn from you. A person that has Kedusha, that has Bittul, says, I'm a Chacham, I can learn from every single person. I can learn, some things I can learn not to, from some people, and some things I can learn to. So there's always something to learn from somebody. It could be the negative also. What not to be, okay? What not to be, yes. Not everything is always to be or not to be. So not everything you have to learn, that's bitter in general. When you listen to somebody, you have to take away the good and only take away the bad and leave the good. Don't think that what you learn from others or even from anybody, that you have to take everything. You have to filter it. You gotta do bitter. You have to filter. You gotta take away the bad. The Defeated Rebbe explains that although the Dal and the Reish have similar shapes, the difference between them is that the Dalet contains the Yud in the back, while the Reish does not. In Shara Yichud Emunah, the Alter Rebbe explains, so Chassidus explains that the shape of each letter indicates the responding characteristics of the godly revelation that is drawn down through a specific letter. So the beauty of the Hebrew, again, the beauty of Lashon Kodesh is that each and every letter has within it unbelievable meaning to each and every letter. Forget it, and then you have the word. But each and every single letter has within it also its meaning. And therefore you have to, that's why there's such a thing as a dogesh. You need to sometimes be careful the way you say the word, the way you say the letter, because the letter is going to change the whole meaning of the word. And it's extremely important. The Yud on the back of the Dalet represents the concept of Bittul, as the Yud is the smallest letter of the Aleph base, a single point which does not spread itself out in any directions. That's why Yud is Chachma in general, because Yud is a dot. Everything else has a shpashtus. Every other letter is spread out. It's spread out. Everything starts with a dot. If you know if you're a cipher, you have to start with a dot. So you have to start with one point, and then then it needs to spread out. Everything spreads out. What is the dot? But everything started off with a dot. Everything started off with a 1 point, with the letter Yud, the Pintel Yid. Everything started off with a dot, and that dot is the aspect of the bittul, the nullification, the true essence of every single letter. Is the letter Yud. The Yud represents bittul, is the entire difference between Kedusha and Klippa. Now you know the difference in general. In Tanya, learn Kabbalah, the difference between Kedusha and the opposite is bittul. Ego and bittul. If a person has ego, it's automatically not Kedusha. It's evil.
And Gava too.
And ego is Gava.
Because
Yeah. So if a person has ego, Gava, and he's automatically the opposite of Kedusha. Kedusha demands bittul. Kedusha demands humility. Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest chacham, right? He reached up to the highest level of chachmas HaTorah, and at the levels of wisdom of Torah, and at the same moment was the most humble person that ever lived.
That's the whole point. The wiser you are, the more you understand that you don't know, you don't know anything.
Right, but in the world it's the opposite. The more you know, the bigger the knaki you are. The bigger the degree you get. The bigger the guy you are. You become the bigger guy, the bigger professor. In Torah, that's the opposite. The more you learn, the more bittul you receive. The more bittul you should receive. You should become more humble. not more egotistical, more humble, humility. That's the chachma. Why? Because first of all, it's not my chachma. It's the chachma of God. So how can I have ego when it's not my wisdom? That's number one. Number two is the wisdom of God, which is godliness, that automatically demands bittul. If it's godliness, then it demands that I should be bottled to it. That's why when it comes to learning, it says, a person should sit and learn Torah with trepidation, fear and trepidation. It's not like, what? My cell phone is beeping. God is calling.
At the same time, we have to respect Talmidei Chachamim.
What?
Demand a certain respect for them, a certain to hold in a certain.
That's somebody else. But a Talmid Chacham doesn't have to demand his respect. If a Talmid Chacham is demand his respect, then it shows that people don't respect Chachma. It shows the ego of somebody else. But in general, a person is challenged by a Talmid Chacham or by another person that is a sage because of his own ego, because he doesn't know what it means to sit and we come to a class, or we come to a sage already with establishing what we have decided already. Right? We come already decided what we want to tell the person, what we want to. We have made already preconceived notions. So your demands, the concept of wisdom demands the concept of bittul, self-nullification. Humility. I don't like the word self-nullification. Humility. So as explained in Tanya, the definition of kedusha. So if you want to know what kedusha is something that is or has the ability to be bottled to Hashem. That is the general rule. Kedusha is bittul, is humility. You cannot have ego, is the expression in the Gemara. Ein ani v'hu yachelim lader b'dira echad. When it comes to ego, God says, I cannot be in the room with him. I cannot be in a room with an egotistical person. That's it. I can be in a room with everybody else. I can't be in a room with a Baal Gaiva. Can't. No room. There's no room for me there. Why? Because if a person is Baal Gaiva, then he doesn't have bittul. Then there's no room for God. There's no room for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I have no room for him. So there's no room for him. He cannot be here. This is an important thing. We don't realize. And that's really what what we need to work on in general. This will make us better people in general if we had anova, if we had humility. And that's what he says, person who understands where he is, his place in life. And understands where he is, not to want to be somebody else or something else, but realizes who he is and what he is. And doesn't make him bad, makes him who he is. God put him into that place, into that situation. So it's always a problem when a person is he has to. Why does a person show his gaiva? Because he doesn't feel comfortable with himself. He's uncomfortable with himself for some reason. He's uncomfortable, so he has to show gaiva. He has to boost himself up, and he has to show some kind of gaiva, to show some aspect of power, because seemingly he feels powerless. He feels like he has to prove himself. Why does a person have to do that? Because he doesn't have bitachon, he doesn't have bittul. He doesn't realize the Eibishter gave him, God put him in that situation, and God gave him that capabilities. And this is what the Eibishter, so God wanted from him. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu knew who he was, it says. Moshe Rabbeinu knew who he was, Moses. But how did he have another? Because he said somebody else could do better. So if Moshe Rabbeinu could say somebody else can do better, I could surely say somebody else can do better. It's not hard for me to say somebody else can do better. Surely somebody else can do better. So I'm happy what I can do. And that I'm not somebody else. Because I'm not somebody else. You're right. Somebody else could do it better. I'm doing the best I can do. and if somebody else wants to do better, gesundheit. He could do it better. Why am I so jealous that somebody else can do it better? No, I have to be there. No, somebody else can do it better. Right? It's not the end of the world.
And how a person can have bitul when Hashem chose him.
No, it's Hashem, because what I can do, nobody can do. What I can do, nobody can do. And everybody, so my value, even though somebody else can do it better, but still my what I can give to the world and what I should give to the world, I need to give to the world in my level. I cannot say either I can do it like either I can be Moshe Rabbeinu or I'm out of the picture. Then nobody will do anything. Imagine if a person said, if I was as smart as Moshe Rabbeinu, I'll do it. If I was rich as Bill Gates, I'll give tzedakah. Then nobody would give tzedakah. Everybody needs to give on his level. Everybody needs to give do the best that he can do. And that's what God wants for them. And the best that he can do, nobody else can do. Yeah? You want to say something?
I was going to say this is the problem of Korach.
100%. It's a problem of beginning of time. Cain and Hevel. What was there? It started off in the day one. You know what I mean? Cain and Hevel. Each way. The Eibishter said, give your way. You give your best. So you're giving from the land, and he's giving from the sheep. That's what I gave. I made you a farmer. I made him a shepherd, and be happy. No, he wanted the land, and he wanted it. Everybody wanted what the other one had. And that shows egotism. That shows, no, I'm not happy with my existence, and I want somebody else's. That happened with the world. So that happened with the brothers. What happened with the Yosef and the brothers? Again, jealousy. It's all jealousy. People, and why do you have jealousy? Because we have a Kabbalah gaivis. We're not makim mekayim. We're not satisfied with what the Eibishter gave us, and we need to be somebody else. We have this negative. But, and the truth is, jealousy is a positive thing. There's a positive thing in jealousy, but mostly a negative.
You're insulting God when you do that because you're basically saying what you're giving me is not enough.
Right, 100%. Right.
Correct.
So I don't have bittul. I don't have humility. I tell the Abraham, I'm telling God, you know what? It's not good enough. What you gave me is not good enough.
You don't know what you're doing.
You're correct. It's not good enough. Yankel has more. It's not fair. I need to have Yankels. And that's it. And that is no anova. That's no humility. Instead of saying, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch. Right? So it says, in Kedusha, you always look higher. Su'umarim enechem. In Klippah, you always look low. In essence, you say, listen, there are people that are collecting money. The Eibush is not asking, Baruch Hashem, you're not going around to shul and asking people for money. You know what I mean? Baruch Hashem, you can still be a giver, not a taker. You thank God. So you want to be a bigger giver. Okay, Baruch Hashem, Mitch Hashem. But stop complaining, Baruch Hashem. You be a person that gives, not takes. It's a big dagger. It's a big level.
That's how the world is. One gives and one takes.
Right, but thank God you can be a giver, not a taker. It's a big schus. We should all be happy that the Eibishter gave us the capability to give. But we'll always have to take, because you'll have to take in Kedusha. You have to take. You'll always be a taker.
Right.
But trust me, you don't want to be a taker when it comes to money. That you have to go around and beg people for money. That's a tough kind of a way of life. You know the Frierdiker Rebbe says to collectors, to collectors like shluchim, he says that you have to collect money. God will forgive you on all your avedas.
Sign me up.
When it starts.
God will forgive you on all your avedas because it's not an easy thing to go and ask people for money. It's a very difficult aveda. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy thing to do. Trust me. You have to have a lot of bittul. It's mevatel you.
Oh no, it's a busha.
It's not chutzpah, it's humility.
A lot of it.
Yeah, but those people are creating mitzvot for other people who are the giver.
I know, you have to feel that way. You have to feel that way.
It's like as soon as you give a guy, like
The Rebbe says, when you go out and ask somebody for money, you should feel that you're doing him a favor. You're giving him a mitzvah.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
It's very hard. L'chaim on that one.
Rabbi, one rabbi said to the other one, you're not doing him a favor by giving him money. He's doing you a favor by taking the money.
Halavai,
He's creating a mitzvah for you.
Halavai, everybody felt that way.
Yeah.
So therefore,
Like
even
inviting
though
somebody for dinner, they need to tell him thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Instead of him telling
it
you
says,
thank you
the
for
Gemara
your-
says,
Yeah.
more than the rich man does for the poor man does for the rich.
Right.
Therefore, even though the dollar is poor, its poverty presents its quality of the yud. That's the beauty of dollars. That's even though dollars sounds more in the difference between a rosh and a dollar. Dollar sounds more poor, but in the kedusha, it's the concept of bittul. It shows more the aspect of self, where the person realizes. So you have somebody who realizes that he's poor.
He doesn't realize?
Somebody who realizes that he's poor. That's a person who's bottled, a person who has humility. He realizes that, you know what, how smart I am, I'm still poor. How rich I am, I'm still poor. Why? Because it's not mine. Whatever I have is not mine.
That's a big honor.
All my wealth in wisdom and in action and in money is all not mine.
Bill Gates never gonna say.
That was Yaakov Avinu. Katainti mikol achasadim mikol emes. Yaakov Avinu had great wealth and great success. He said, it's nothing. Katainti, I'm small. For all the kindness, I'm small. I'm batal. It's all not mine. It's all a bracha and Eibush. No, it's more than that. It's all bracha and Eibush. It's not mine. It's not mine. You're right.
אז אדם לא שמח אלכוהול,
It's not mine. Yeah.
צריך להבין שזה בא משם, לא ממנו.
What?
There's a famous Master Shahaya,
Yeah.
the Rabbi Zusha, Anipoli, who was the brother of Rabbi Elimelech Lezins, who was a very big Talmud Chacham. Once Rabbi Zusha was crying, and someone asked him, in other words, the Master says, are you crying because you aren't Moshe Rabbeinu? And
Yeah, I'm
he
crying not
answered,
Zusha.
I'm crying because I'm not yet Zusha.
Right. I thought you said Razusha was happy with that he's poor, but Razusha was taka poor. The chachma is to be rich and not to feel that it's that you're poor. That's the chachma. If you're poor, the Eibishter made you poor, and the Eibishter, then God made you humble. But if you were David HaMelech or Yaakov Avinu or Shlomo HaMelech, who had wealth and had all these things and said, you know what, I'm nothing. Avram Avinu had everything and said, Anochi offer ve'efer, I'm the dust of the earth, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. Therefore, even though the dalet is poor, its poverty presents its quality of the yud bittul, its readiness to recognize and admit that it has nothing of its own. That's the point. Not that it has nothing, because it has something. It has nothing of its own, which makes it part of Kedusha. So the bittul brings it into Kedusha. The truth is, that's in essence how you can bring Kedusha into anything in the world, into everything that you have, is to realize, to bring the Yud into it, to realize that everything is from the Eibishter. That everything that I have, Baruch Hashem, everything that God has given me is all not my own. Was all given to me from HaKadosh Baruch, from God. It's not my own. It was given to me as a gift. How can I have any ego in something that is not my own? That was given to me as a matana, as a gift.
Rabbi,
Yeah?
if I'm correct, in the Hakdama to the Tanya,
Yeah.
it says there that the Alter Rebbe did not put his name on the sharblan. In other words, it wasn't until the 8th edition that the Alter Rebbe's name appeared in the Tanya, and he attributed everything else to suffering, to his holy teachers. In other words, it didn't come from me. It couldn't
Right.
be mine. I just collected it.
Correct. In contrast, the Reish does not have a Yud. The Reish, the Reish is missing the Yud. And therefore, is part of Sitra Achad. The Reish has the concept of it's still a Reish, it's still missing the bittul, and therefore the Reish has within it. That's why it's klippa still the kuf and reish and shin. The reish is missing the bittul, and the reish has still of its own. It's an oni. It's still poor, but he's a kvetching poor guy. He thinks he's poor because of his lack, because he has not been successful. He is for some reason a shlamazel. He is. It's all about him. He wants, and such a poor man will never be happy. He'll always be poor. That's what the Gemara says, Ein ani ela bidas. A poor man is really in his mind. You can have a rich man who's poor. You can have a poor man that's rich. It's all in your das. So therefore, that's a different than Dal and the Reish. A rich man that is poor has a Reish because he's worried. I mean, he might not have it tomorrow. I received it today. I better hold on to it. I'm a hoarder. Because it's all my success. And a poor man and a rich man that is poor is a guy who says everything. I'm not talking about only money. I'm talking about even kedusha in the aspect of wisdom. So that's when a person acquires wisdom, only but das. A person that's poor in das means a person realizes that he continued to learning. What all he knows is nothing in comparison to wisdom. A person that thinks that he becomes about gaiva. He thinks all his learning is my success, and the other person's is a simpleton, and I have to show him the light, and I have to push him the great educator, and everybody else needs to learn from me. So I wish you all can have a wonderful day. We'll continue the Maimah next week. Yeah,